Hello, today is Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. My name is Vincent Pena. I am interviewing Jennifer Reyna for the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Ms. Reyna, that this interview will be placed at the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection at UT Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting. So I'll ask you a series of 5 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each one. There are 2 questions we need to make sure you agree to before we go on. Voces wishes to archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation at the Benson Library at UT Austin. We will retain copyright of the interview and any other materials you donate to Voces. Do you give Voces consent to archive your interview and your materials at the Benson Library?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant Voces copyright over the interview and any material you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow us to post this interview on the internet, where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
We have many questions in a pre-interview form that we just filled out. We use that information from the pre-interview form to help in research. That entire form is kept in a secure Voces server. Before we send it to the Benson, we would have stripped out any contact information about yourself or family members, so that will not be part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at the Benson Library, at the physical location, so you can't access it online. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview and your public file available to researchers at the Benson?
Yes, I agree.
And then lastly, on occasion, Voces receives requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone number or your email with journalists?
Yes, I agree.
And just as an aside, you can always, even if we give that to them, you never have to respond to them. So
Okay.
yeah. There's no obligation there. Yeah. Okay, then, so let's go ahead and get started with the interview. And first, I want you to, if you would please, go ahead and just tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do for a living, and yeah.
My name is Jennifer Reyna. I was born and raised in LA. I moved to Portland, Oregon a little over 3 years ago. It'll be 4 years in October this year, 2020. And what I do, oh my gosh, I work in the tech industry. So I work for a company called Squarespace, and I'm an advisor there.
Okay, and how and when did you first learn about COVID-19?
I actually was at work when I heard about it the first time. Someone called it the coronavirus. And I thought he said something about his friend's girlfriend having the coronavirus. And I thought it was called the coronavirus because I thought it had to do with having a hangover because of drinking Corona. And this was in December, like late November, December. And I was just like, what is that? And I looked it up, and I heard about all the things that were happening in Hong Kong, and just that's where it was happening, right? The city, yeah.
I think Wuhan,
Wuhan.
in China,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So I looked it up and found everything that was happening in Wuhan and the lockdowns, and I was just like, whoa, it seemed surreal. It didn't seem real at all. And then once January and February hit, started seeing more information on like other countries getting affected, and then a lot of stuff on Instagram, and then memes, of course, happening all the time. And it's funny at that moment, and now that I think about it, I'm just like, wow, that's fucked up. But then it happened in the US, and then in March I was sitting, it was like March 12th, sitting down at work with one of my coworkers, and we got the email from the CEO saying that we were going to be working from home for like indefinitely. And that's when I was like, oh my God, like my heart sank. Like I had no idea that this was going to impact everyone globally. So I'm still kind of thinking back and just being like, is this all real? So, yeah.
Yeah, the last few months have been absolutely they both whizzed by, and also felt like it's been the longest year of my entire life.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
um, so I guess at that point, that like when you found out that you were going to be working from home for the foreseeable future, was that when you kind of took it seriously, or did you kind of was it kind of a gradual as you know you started seeing social media stuff and the news? Like, at what point did you really like, oh shit, this is real?
I would say when we got that email, because I mean, I think that I don't know. I haven't gotten sick, and I think this is like very stubborn of me to say like I'm not going to get sick, but I'm still following the rules and I'm still social distancing, wearing a mask, being respectful of others. I didn't know how much of an impact this was having on everybody in the world. I think because I was like in my own little world too, and I just like a lot of people, they were just all in their own little world, and now this is just kind of put everything into perspective and um, yeah, so once I got the email, that's when I was like, oh shit. That's when I started worrying about other people than myself because I live alone. I'm a homebody. I'm fine with being at home. I take walks and I don't go out to the bars or clubs. And I'm sure so many people's worlds are tumbling, crashing down because they can't go to a club or a bar or whatever. But I was fine in that sense. What hurt me more or like made me sad more was like for kids and like hearing that they're going to be stuck in homes that aren't safe and like families that are going to be stuck in homes that aren't safe. Like that's what triggered me more. And I was just like, wow, like they're not going to have any place to go to. And so yeah, it was a scary feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Even you know, for the kids, and like you made a good point about the kids, because obviously there's ones that go home, their home situation is not ideal or
Mhm.
outright bad. But even though, you know, talking to my aunt about this, you know, just the fact that her kids didn't grasp what it meant to stay home, like, no, you can't go outside, you can't go hang with your friends, we can't go to the movies anymore, we can't
Yeah.
go to Olive Garden, like, so that's especially when you're like 8 years old, you know, you don't even understand life, let alone like what this pandemic means for what it's going to do to your life, right? So on that note, how has COVID impacted you? I know you spoke a little bit to it right there, that you know you're already a homebody, so that was an easy transition. But how has it just in general impacted your daily life?
My daily life, I would say, I mean, so before COVID, before the lockdown, like quarantine and everything, I had like my routine set. Like I would go to the gym every day, walk every day. I walked to and from work because work was like a 20-minute walk. Um, I don't know. I enjoyed my routine. And then like this happened, the gym closed. Um, it was like really hard for friends to come around and like let's all go on a hike or let's all go do this together because I mean, we need to be careful. We all can't like be hanging out with each other anymore, and we need a social distance. So then, in that sense, like I haven't seen as many friends as I used to here. Right now, I see like two or three, only because we live like 2 minutes away from each other, and we go on walks to the park. And yeah, like even for the gym, a lot of inner my inner critic has been like, why aren't you doing stuff? It's the I feel like this is something I've learned earlier this year, the colonial mindset of like you always need to be busy, you always need to be doing something, like not letting yourself rest. So that is something that I've been needing to be okay with. There are days where I'm like, I'm cool, I'm fine, like it's okay, and there are days where I'm like, you're being lazy, to myself. It has nothing, and this has nothing to do with anybody else. Like if someone were doing this to themselves, I'd be like, you deserve that. You deserve that rest. But for me, it's just like something I need to deal with. So I think in that sense, um, my routine has just changed. I think it's challenged me to slow down. I think for me, I deal with a lot of like there I need to do more. There needs to be more than to what I'm doing instead of just trusting the process and trusting like where I am at right now is perfectly okay and fine. So
Yeah, so you mentioned, you know, a little bit there how it's impacted your ability to gather with friends, even, and I guess you some of the people we've talked to have like formed little, kind of like what you just said, you kind of did there, like formed little groups of people that you're allowing yourself to see. So how did you, would you talk a little bit more about that and how you navigated like who you were and weren't allowed to see?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I don't want to say it as like, I'm not allowed to see you. I wouldn't tell my friends that, but I think for me, when I first moved here, I didn't really have that many friends, and then I got to Squarespace, and that's where I made like the majority of my friends, and that's who I hung out with the most. A lot of the friends that I'm hanging out with now are people that I've met outside of Squarespace, which I appreciate because, like, I mean, I love my work friends, but I don't want to, I'm not sure how to put this, always hang out with work people. I kind of want to have my own life or make my own life outside of work. Still, I love everybody at work, but it's just like one of those things where I think I need to grasp onto. I feel like I've always made friends with people at work, and I've always associated my whole life around my work. So I've met a couple friends outside of work before this all happened. One, her name is Olivia, and she lives like down the street from me. And we actually met in a shared lift. And we were talking in the shared lift, and then I just said, I'm like, do you want to hang out? And then we were like, yeah. And then that was in November, and we just hung out ever since. And so she lives down the street. And then I have another friend, Diana. She and I met at a book club meeting. And she's also someone that like I adore very much. I think I learned a lot from her because she's also Latina, and she has her PhD. She just got her PhD, and I'm just like, so like, I don't really come across a lot of people, especially from my community, that have their PhDs, and I'm like, I want to learn from you and grow and see where this friendship takes us. So we've been hanging out too, and so I think that's perfectly fine for me right now, especially with everything going on in the world. I think it's just so much, and the kind of person that's going to take everything in. And I think seeing just those two people have been okay with me instead of just draining out all my energy. There have been times where I've seen people that I haven't seen in a while, but these have been like safe. We've taken safe procedures on how to hang out and stuff, but they've been like special occasions. They've been very rare, and it's really nice to see all those people. I think it makes me cherish my time with them more when I see them in person, not as often as I used to. But yeah.
Yeah, that's cool about the, meeting friends in the
I know.
regular, forming bonds. I,
She always tells everyone how we met. It's so funny. It's very rare,
I was gonna say, because I'm a talkative dude. I usually like share lifts and I'll like talk to them, but either they don't want to talk, or two, they're like, can't wait to get the hell out of the car after, like, So that's kind of cool that you were able to create a friendship that, like, lasts past that interaction. Okay, so kind of similar. How has it affected COVID affected your family back home, or I don't know if you have any family up in Portland, but just in general, how has it impacted them or their ability to gather? For me, we have similar sized families. They all still see each other back in Phoenix, so it's kind of not sure how responsible that is, but like like this, we're a community family. Like everything we do is like so it's kind of hard, and that's kind of I think a similar theme among Latinos. So yeah, I guess just speak to a little
Uh,
bit like how it's affected your family.
yeah. So all my family lives back home. I don't have any family here, but my family's also the same. They like to gather always at my grandma's house. There's like so many people that live at my grandma's house. It's insane. Like, or coming in and out. It's a lot. But I've checked in from time to time. When this all started, I was talking to my mom like consistently, probably like once a week, because I was more worried about her health, more worried about my grandma's health, and just like I'm wanting them to take care of each other, and just calling and like giving tips on how to take care of themselves. And yeah, so that's like been the one thing that I've been most worried about. They were actually planning to come visit me this year in Portland, like this month. And this they actually had bought their tickets in June, and that's when like the phases were starting. But then the cases started rising, and I was like, "Oh no, this is not gonna happen." And she told me that my mom. It was actually just supposed to be my mom and my sister, and then my baby sister told me that my grandma's coming, and that's when I was like, "No, you're not." And that's when I had to tell my mom, like, we need to take this way more seriously. I do not want you to risk your life or something to happen to my grandma. And I wouldn't know what to do if that were to happen. Like, I don't want to risk that. That's scary. So they canceled their flights. They got the refund, thankfully. But my mom, she was temporarily furloughed. So I don't know when she's going to be going back. And she's also worried with that. And she had been getting unemployment. And with unemployment, I guess there was a case of a lot of people getting their information taken, and charges had been made on my mom's like an unemployment card or something like that, like fraudulent charges. So she had to go through all of the steps on how to report that and get her money back, and it was so stressful. And I mean, it wasn't my money or anything, but I just, like I said, I'm the kind of person that's gonna take it all in, and I just felt for her. I felt it. I was more mad at the country than at like the situation. I was just like, why do our people need always have to keep struggling? Always, it's not one thing, it's another, and it's like my mom is a very hard worker, and it's just I feel so bad that she has to go through this right now. So I know right now she and this my grandma have been going on walks and kind of like taking the safe route. I don't know if anyone's hiding anything from me because I don't live over there, and they kind of don't like to tell me a lot of stuff because they know I'm gonna just be like, well, this and this and this. So I have a younger sister. She works. She's not on the front lines, but she works like in healthcare, and she's doing good. She hasn't gotten sick. I have another sister who works at a beauty like store, and she's also they're not doing curbside and or like takeout, like I guess deliveries for orders. It's like people are just going in like, and it's in LA, and people don't care. Like they're not taking this seriously, and it's just it's so bad. I have a younger sister that's a vet tech, so she's doing good. And my older sisters, one is not working right now, so she's taking care of like her son and my grandma who have respiratory issues. So it's like she needs to be safe, and also they need to be safe, like in case like they were to get like sick or anything like that. And my oldest sister, I don't think she's working right now. Haven't really talked about that, but um, she actually had a friend that passed away from it. Um, Her friend was also had heart issues and like respiratory issues, so she had it, and then she died from it. They didn't. She told me that they didn't really like do a biopsy. Is that what it's called? When they check their body,
Autopsy.
autopsy. Yeah, they didn't really do one, and um, yeah, she said it like it's like they just throw their bodies away. That's it. And I felt so bad for her because it's like she wanted to celebrate her life and like get something together, and it's really hard, especially right now. And yeah, it was like yeah, one of her best friends since high school, and I knew of her. I remember her name. I remember they were always together. I remember, I know back in the day when everyone used to go to like the photo places and take pictures together, especially like the cholas. My sister was a chola, and they took pictures together, so she was always in the pictures. So I remember that, and I felt so bad. I felt horrible, and but yeah, it's there's probably more, but because I don't live over there, I'm not aware of everything that's happening. And I feel like if I was living over there, I would be even more stressed than I am already, thinking of all these things that are going on in my head about what's happening. So yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate about your, your sister's friend. One of them, I had a friend back in Phoenix who lost both his dad and his grandma during this time. Not even COVID related, but they had to tell people, call and tell them like, hey, you can't come to the funeral. Like we have a limit of 10 people. So imagine like calling someone's godson or their aunt, and it's really awful, to yeah, no, this whole situation that it puts people in, especially when they lose loved ones. But it kind of sounds like, for you that and correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounds like a lot of your stress from the situation comes from like the worry you have and concern about your family back
Yeah.
home, which I totally understand personally. So, um, yeah, no, so I can imagine it's only like for your situation, how much of a struggle that is to not be able to really do much, but also kind of getting like frustrated by the lack of like, if for those who are who are not caring, like it's like, oh, I wish you would do this, but then I can't do anything about it because you're not. Anyway, so yeah, I definitely get that because my brothers, even they, I have a lot of younger brothers. One's like 20, the other one's 21. They all just could care less, they're like going hang out at friends' houses. They're like, what's not gonna really get me, I'm young. You
I
see,
have cousins, yeah.
you said something earlier about like, you have this kind of idea or this notion that like, oh, I'm not gonna really get sick, or at least at the onset of it. And I was raised by a very machismo, you know, Mexican dad who was just like, hey, I'm not gonna get sick, whatever. And then he dies of a heart attack. So that's, irony there is you are gonna get sick sometime, you know what I mean? Anyways, uh, so I guess about your family, did any of them lose, like you said a couple of your sisters weren't working, did any of them lose their employment because of COVID, or was it just because they weren't already working and then it was harder for them to get?
Um, my sister was a phlebotomist at a clinic, and she was going back. They sent them home like during all this that happened, and then they were having them come back temporarily. But she felt like it wasn't safe, and so she decided to just leave. And um, she felt that it wasn't safe because she was coming home to her son and my grandma, and also my niece that she sees from time to time, like takes care of. And it's like she's gonna risk their lives for this job, so she decided to just take a step back and just not work and focus on making sure everyone else is healthy.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. But so to date though, no one in your family has contracted COVID or anything?
No, I mean, we talked about it, or I mean, this is probably everybody. Then November, December, they were like really sick. Like my grandma was sick, and then my sister got sick, and my niece is sick, and they're like, we were wondering if we had it or something, because it happened in November was when it started, right? Or like probably like October, November. And but they haven't, I don't know if they've taken the antibodies test to see if they had it before, but they were like worried that they might have had it. So far, no one in my family has it or has had it. I do have a friend back home that did get it, and her family got it, and now she's recovering, and she's on an oxygen tank. And I'm just like, even though she's not my family, I see her as my sister, and it's just really so sad to hear about. And that's another thing. This When you're recovering, it's like you broke a leg or an arm, and it's gonna take a while for you to recover back from it. And I think that's another thing, the colonial mindset of like, I need to get better and I need to start working again and I need to start doing this. And when you just need to just sit back and relax and also be grateful that you're alive and make the most of it for right now. And I mean, it's easier said than done. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry to hear about your friend. That's I had yeah, I can only imagine how hard it is recovering from this. Especially because it's something we don't even know how long it lingers or if you can get it again, or um, yeah, like you said, there's so much unknown about it. Okay, so I guess how kind of transitioning to your work, how has it impacted your work? I mean, I know you started working from home, but what was that transition like? Was it easy? Was it something that you guys had already done? So would you talk a little bit about how, your work life has been impacted?
Um, yeah, working at Squarespace, we do have like a work from home policy before everything happened. We were allowed to work like twice a week at home whenever we wanted, or like whatever day we wanted to. And so that was cool. And I did like working from home. And then once we permanently started working from home, I was like, okay, I need to set up something. And I finally have like a working area set up where I'm not really like waking up and working in my bed or like sitting on the couch, getting really uncomfortable. And it's been a whole process of, I mean, essentially I'm sleeping at work. It made me feel like I was sleeping at work. I would wake up. I mean, my routine is getting better, but there were times where I would wake up and be like, I don't want to work, or like there's too much for me to think about. I couldn't sleep when the Black Lives Matter movement started happening, probably around Memorial Day weekend. I couldn't sleep for like weeks. It was like really weird. Not weird. It was just like I just wanted to make sure that I knew everything that was happening. And also with when coronavirus started in America, and like when we all had to go home, I was like on watching the news, reading the news. Like I know watching the news like channels, not like that. I was more like on Reddit and reading the articles that would come out. Um, so that was another thing. I was just like, it was just so much information to put together, and it made work like seem, I don't know, just like, is there a point to this right now? Is it something that I should really be focusing on? I feel like that's for a lot of people, especially in my community. Learning about politics, learning about all this stuff. It's really hard to do when you're working like 40 hours a week or more, because you need to take care of your family and you need to put food on the table. And it wasn't really talked about when I was growing up. Politics were not talked about. It was just not a thing. And I think now more than ever, I've been more educated on the subject. And I always felt when I would have conversations like this with others, it was just like I didn't feel confident in talking about it. So this has opened my eyes, and I feel like it's opened a lot of people's eyes on what should really matter. Because like, I mean, I love the work that I do. I love my job. I love the people that I work with. I love all the skills that I've made in this job, but it's like, I want the world to be better, and how are we going to do it? How am I going to do that working here? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you speak to a good point there, especially about, like the one, there's we have the pandemic going on, and then we have this, which is not a new fight, but a struggle for racial injustice, right? Because that just made more clear every time we see another example of someone getting killed by the cops or whoever. But then, like, when you're watching it, like the news is already hard enough to handle, especially with this administration, and just like the last few years have been like a weighing down. But I think a point you spoke to there was, as a Latino, or in the, like, the Latino community, not only are you informing yourself, but then you're also making yourself aware to the disproportionate struggle that, Latinos have to face. So it's like, oh, cool, now I know about like a lot more about politics. Oh, and now I know how screwed up they are towards like people who look like me or in my community, right? So I guess, how would you, kind of characterize what it's been like, going through this, given the dual, I guess, um, considering both the pandemic and as well as like the social political environment now, and how has that been on you, both like, mentally, emotionally, physically, in addition to kind of what you've already mentioned with your work?
Are you referring to like learning more about the history and learning about like capitalism and the system and all this shit that it's meant to bring down Black and brown people? Like, that has been a struggle to learn about. And I go to therapy, and I've talked to my therapist about it, which is a good thing because she's half Black. And going to therapy, I did not want a white person to talk to me, or I didn't want to talk to a white therapist. They don't know where I come from. They don't know my struggle. They don't know like the things that I've seen or have experienced. So it was really hard. And I think that's why it took me so long to find a therapist. I just started going like the beginning of this year. So talking to her about it and talking and like saying all these things that I've learned and just like crying, and she's just like, she's just like, yep, like welcome to like what all this stuff that I guess we were so blind, like just following all the rules. This is just the way it is. That's all I would fucking hear all the time. This is just the way it is. And then I was always questioning it. And my mom and I would always fight because I always questioned a lot of things. And just like learning more about it, and I don't know, it's heartbreaking because my mom had to go through it, my grandma, my uncles and aunts, and I'm sure they've all dealt with like certain things, especially when it comes to racism, but also have never talked about it because that's the machismo culture. It's kind of just like, or just kind of just brushing it under the rug and not really talking about it. When it's no, that's not okay. Like it's also really hard, especially for me, because I'm learning all this stuff, and I have a couple sisters that also feel the same way in regards to like social issues and the mindset of the colonizer, and trying to get rid of that mindset and trying to focus on like getting back to our roots and embracing our culture. But I also see a lot of family that see me as a, like a sheep, or not a black sheep. That's what I meant. Kind of like, okay, relax. And also, I've heard this. She didn't really tell this to me, but I've heard my sister told me that like someone in my family had said that I sound white, and for me, I was like, what does that even mean? I mean, white as in like I'm speaking up for what I believe in. White as in I'm like not taking bullshit. White as in like I don't understand that, because white people want brown people to be submissive, to be quiet, to not talk like them. Like how? Why would you even like? And it's hard because I was born and raised in America, but I'm also feel like I'm not Hispanic or Latina enough for my own culture. When it's like I was brought here. You came here because you wanted me to have a better life, or like other people have a better life, and because I'm playing the game of what white people want us to do in order to be successful, it's like now I don't know where I belong.
Yeah, no, I identify with that song like a lot. I don't even know how to identify with that a lot, especially as someone who's getting a level of education that I am. And growing up, I was at the white Catholic school. I was the prototypical Mexican for them because they didn't know any Mexican people, right? And then in my neighborhood, I wasn't Mexican enough because we didn't learn how to speak Spanish growing up. So I'm both not Mexican enough, and then I'm not white enough, right? So it's I think it's like and I think it's a struggle. I think that a lot of Latinos in general kind of struggle with, because they're not. If you look at the census, we're not a race, right? But we definitely I'm not black. I'm definitely not
Mm-hmm.
white. Especially culturally, and in the way I grew up, my experience is not a white experience, right? Um, so yeah, like I definitely identify with that struggle, and I think this is a kind of good transition into talking about um, the current social and political climate in terms of your activism or anything you've done uh, regarding Black Lives Matter, or things prior to this, even including your job. Um, you said you have a role as like an ERG. Would you explain that a little bit and like what you do? And then yeah.
As an ERG lead um, I guess my role is to just like, well, our main goal for the ERG is to educate um, on those educate those, meaning the white people that we work with, on Black, Indigenous, people of color identities, and also try to bring in representation into senior leadership with, those that identify as BIPOC, because there aren't any, especially in Portland. I haven't seen any, or from where I'm working, like, no people of color in senior leadership. And I mean, that's been very eye-opening for me. I think starting there, I was very grateful. I was really appreciative. I was like, wow, a tech job. I'm finally here. I made it. I've had people back home tell me, you've made it. Like, I'm just like, it's a weird thing to think about, coming from where I've come from, working at a tech company. And yeah, it's just, now the reason I joined the ERG is because I wanted to build a community, or like make friends, because there were so many white people that worked at Squarespace. And then it just fell into my lap on being an ERG lead. I was asked, like, do you want to be a lead? Do you want to do some work? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I did it. And it was a lot of programming. And we also did like a zine, like a project that we made. I don't know if you know, Tony was actually a part of this project. We like had one of the employees take pictures of portraits of the people we interviewed that wanted to participate. And it was a zine highlighting and celebrating everybody in the Portland office, all the employees that identified as BIPOC. And we shared their stories. And that's what's really important to me, is sharing your story. I think for me, because I don't know, stories are very relatable. Stories can help us connect with one another. And sharing that is very important. So we did that project and it was great. And now coming to this year, I think it's been a little bit stressful. I mean, when COVID happened, it was fine. And then the Black Lives Movement started, and it was kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. Felt rushed. It felt like, oh, we need to do all these things, like, and it was, for a moment, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But also, like, I know I'm an ERG, but also, like, it's not my job to educate all these white people on, like, the struggles. Like, I don't know. It was a little overwhelming. But I've been working on, like, uh, with people, and I don't think I've really addressed it. I think it was more of like an inner thing where I've been just like, I need to figure out like how I can work everything together. And I also feel for those like in the other ERGs that are trying to educate people in the office that aren't even getting paid for this extra work that they're doing. And for me, in the beginning, I was like, this is fun, this is cool to do. And now I've been like, am I getting paid enough to do this? Like, hello, do you want more from me? Like, pay me more. So I feel like I've rambled. Is there did I not answer the
No, you're fine. You're fine. I think that was great. I think especially, I still have more questions for you, but the way I think you talk about, this free labor that's expected of people of color to educate people who don't get it, right, for the benefit of them, not for the benefit of you, the educator, right? So it's like, hey, this is my experience as, as a Black woman, as a Latino person in this world. They're like, oh, thanks for letting me know. And then
right.
they're just like move on with their lives and they don't have to be impacted by it. But now they're, they're an ally, they're woke.
It reminds me so much of also like when, if there's we're in a certain setting and something inappropriate happens, and then like if I say something, I'm going to be seen as the angry brown woman. But after this meeting, I'll get a text or messages of like, oh, thanks for saying that. Yeah, thanks for doing that. And it's like, why didn't anybody else say that? Why didn't anybody else, like, that's the whole thing also with corporate culture. It's just like, just say it. Say what you mean, and I think for me, I am very transparent and just very direct, and I don't think a lot of people like that. So yeah, that's something I work on.
Well, like you said, especially, they don't mind the directness if it's from someone that looks different, right? But if you're, not who they want to be hearing from, then
Exactly.
it's like, whoa, hey, chill out over there. Okay, so then I guess my next question would be, um, how much activism would you say you engaged in before, coronavirus, before COVID, and
Um,
how did that impact your, activism, or has your activism kind of really picked up afterwards?
I mean, when I started ERG work, one of the main goals was to support the local community and let like the Black and Brown community know that Squarespace is here to support, or Unity at Squarespace, which is what the ERG is called, is here to support like Black-owned businesses, brown-owned businesses, any organizations like such as Portland in Color, which highlight a lot of artists in Portland, or like Tender Table, which put on events to share the stories of those that identify as BIPOC, or non-gender, like binary people, and share their stories, share food with one another, because food is a big staple in a lot of BIPOC communities. And I think like I see that as activism work. I see that as reaching out, because like I have this budget, I have these resources, and I want to use them on people that deserve it, and people that need the support from, tech companies, like to show that we're here to support. So with that, like I would say like my activism started once I started doing ERG work, because again, like moving here made me open my eyes on how white this city is, and how many times I've been put in situations where I've only been the brown person. And I think embracing that, having the ability to embrace communities and businesses that support Black and brown people is very important. And then regarding protests, I had never gone to protests before, and I was a little bit nervous. I actually had a conversation with one of my friends. He's Black, and we were both kind of like, he wanted to try it out, but I also did. We were both just like, I kind of don't trust these protests for some reason. Like, I don't know, like it just didn't seem like it was safe for Black or brown people. And so I was contemplating at first on whether to go or not, and then I finally found a group of friends that I felt safe enough to go to for my first time, which is Tony was one of them, and then like a couple other people, Christian and another friend, Teresa, and we went, and it was great. And seeing, but also like we had two experiences where car tried to like run over the crowds, and both times they were middle-aged white men driving these cars, and it just like, it's so, yeah, it's so sad to me. It makes me mad, but also it's like really sad, because it's just like the way that this world was, or this country was created. I mean, the world too, just like always feeding off the whiteness, I guess, like with colorism, and always wanting to be white, and always wanting to do this, like because white people would approve of it. And it's just like, it's exhausting. And yeah.
No, yeah, you're right about the exhausting part. It's and the fact that, I think the main point there is that the world is centered around white people and built for them, right? Especially in the United States. And even then, the things that, that are quote unquote counterculture are only not so when they accept it, they want it, they like it, they want to consume it, right? You think about like hip hop or something, and it's like, ooh, that's bad. Our kids can't listen to that. Oh wait, we have some white rappers. I think this is okay now. You know what I mean? Like, um, so you talked a little bit there about, you finally found a group that you felt comfortable enough to go. So were the main concerns just that like you said, you thought that the protests maybe weren't safe for you, or maybe like you weren't sure about the um, the, I don't know if the influence is the right word for that, like you weren't sure like what the protests were about, or was it because how much did COVID weigh into that? And I guess so, yeah, explain that a little more.
Yeah, I was all about the protests. I was all about like fighting for this cause, fighting for our like human rights, basically. Like, I'm sorry that I want everyone to be treated equally and not be treated like shit. Why does anyone want anyone to be treated like shit? I don't get that. But I was all for the protests, and I think more being safe was more like danger wise. Like, I didn't want to get arrested. I mean, I don't care if I got arrested, but I didn't want to get taken advantage of as being a woman, especially a brown woman in a white city. It's a lot, especially being a woman and thinking about like, I need to be safe and who's going to take care of me. No one's going to take care of me but myself. So I need to think of all these different things in order to make sure that I'm going to get a safe experience. I didn't want to say best experience. I don't know how to I don't know how to talk about like protests and the experience. It's been a beautiful experience being in the protests and like seeing all the people and fighting for this. But yeah, there have been times where I've been like worried, or I'll look at people and like, are they here for this cause, or are they here to fucking cause mayhem or just like destroy stores? Because that's not what we're here about. But I've been hearing that people are doing that because they don't care. And trying to think of what else. Oh, and then COVID. Yeah, it was a lot because like we can get sick. I was out at protests for like 2 weeks, like going like every other day, and then I would come home and like take a hot shower, check my temperature, like make sure like all those clothes that I wore are washed separately in like hot water, and just like, yeah. So that it was a lot. It was very overwhelming, but I didn't think twice about why like what's the purpose of these protests. Like, no, I thought they have every right. We have every right. Every human has every right to protest this shit that's going on.
So did you say like your desire for, wanting to stand up for these issues like outweighed your fear of COVID? 'Cause
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of people who were like, oh, I can't, like, and this, I'm about it, but I'm gonna stay on social media and just flood my feed with information. And I don't want to get sick. But for you were kind of, that wasn't really a consideration.
yeah. No, I was like, I'm just gonna do it. And there have been scares. I've had scares where I've been like, oh my god, do I have it? Great. Or like, I'll tell people I can't see them for 2 weeks because I was in protest, and I just don't want to risk it, or I don't want to give anyone anything. And thankfully, I haven't had it. I've taken the test. It is not fun. But yeah, it's just, nah, that doesn't stop me. Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess about last kind of question I have about your um, activism and how COVID has may or may not impacted it. Have you also, I guess, what are your, I don't know how to phrase this question. I guess, what role has social media played in this for you? Like I've just mentioned, a lot of people have kind of transitioned to social media either as like a safe way to express their support for the cause, or as like their just another outlet to share information, especially because we've been in a pandemic and we've been on lockdown. You see this rise, and everyone on my feed, granted I follow, like, everyone I know is liberal, so everyone is like sharing these resources about defunding police or police brutality, or related to Black Lives Matter and stuff. So I guess, what is your experience with that, and I guess, how is that, have you had any, let's just
I think I know what you're asking,
yeah.
but I thought about that too, like activism as well, because social media does have a very big, I mean, impact on activism. I think nowadays, I think for the past couple of years, because I had deleted my Instagram in 2018. I didn't have it for like a year, and then got it back last year, 2019, and um, and just like only followed people that I was going to learn from. I started following a lot of therapists because I thought like self-healing wasn't seeing a therapist then, but I thought a lot of self-healing was very important, and like I want to learn and grow. And it's not really talked about in black and brown communities on mental health, and I just wanted to just keep learning about it. And then social issues started coming up, and even before the whole thing happened in May with George Floyd. Before that, I was still sharing resources on therapy, on mental health, on like um, why we shouldn't treat others differently because of their occupation, and like everyone's here working together for, to live their life and should be treated equally, should be like women's reproductive rights should not be in any control over anyone, like it's their body, like all these things. And just learning about all these things, especially on social media, and sharing resources. I share these resources and I don't give a fuck. Like if anyone's following me and they're like, I don't agree with that, like if they don't agree with that, they can unfollow me. And I share this more for like my family to see what I'm thinking, and so that they can get open their minds and have a better perspective on like the world, because in Latino culture is so close-minded. No one wants to learn. Everyone is just like, this is just the way it is. My grandma, bless her soul, she lives the senora life, but like that's not me. Like she's always asking me when I'm gonna have kids, when I'm getting married. Like it's just not for me. Not right now, in the sense, like I'm still learning and I'm still growing, and I think there's way more to life than being married and having kids and catering to someone. But that's her life. That's my mom's life, or that was my mom's life. Like that's their life. Like they cater to people. And I mean, there's no judgment in that, but I just like wish my community would just open their minds more. And I think with that, I share a lot of my resources online. And like if anyone has questions, I'm always like, ask me, especially my cousins. I haven't really been back home a lot, but I did go home right before this happened, the COVID happened. And I talked to a lot of my cousins, and just seeing them all grown up and just like having these conversations about life and talking about our families. And it's been really eye-opening, and they all follow me. And now I still share the resources, because I'm like, if you're gonna follow me, this is what I'm gonna be sharing. And I follow a lot of like, I love the whole idea of sharing these resources online, because that's where the majority of people live their life, pretty much, or spend their time. Might as well just make it educated. Stop following fucking Kim Kardashian and all these other influencers, and like educate yourself. Open your mind. They're not gonna pay your bills. Like, why are you gonna? No, I don't get it. I mean, I remember like that's the reason the first time I deleted my Instagram was because like I was comparing myself too much to so many people that, again, Instagram is like just a highlight reel. This isn't their life. And so that's like something that I had to struggle with, and I deleted it, and I was like perfectly fine. I mean, I still struggle. Everyone does. But I think doing that like helped me a lot, and helped me reflect on myself and things that I want to grow and learn from. And again, like with the social movements that are happening, I took that in and be like, what, like, am I too, like, there were points or times where I was too scared to like share something because I was worried about what someone else is gonna think. But then I would be like, this is how I feel, and this is genuinely how I feel. I support this movement. I support people taking care of other people. Like, this is for the people. And the government is so corrupt, and I'm so sick and tired of my community being so blind about it. And so that's why I share my resources. That's why I talk about it still. And yeah, so yeah.
That was
I hope
great.
that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was above and beyond like
Okay.
like what I want, like I was expecting. I think it's especially kind of, you know, I don't know, like that idea that you're kind of like you said, you're like almost talking directly to your family in some ways, like right, or indirectly to your family through social media, because like you said, this community, the Latino community, can at times be like any group of people, but closed-minded, especially the ones that are based so much in tradition, and that tradition is usually rooted in Catholicism or some type of Christianity, right, which has very structured gender roles, societal roles, and stuff. And I like again, I think I kind of identify with that same struggle because, and I usually don't post on social media because I, like you, I'm like, oh well, I don't want to alienate my friends who are idiots. I don't want to I don't want to make people think I'm some like Marxist crazy dude because I, don't think billionaires should exist or whatever it is that I don't, you know what I mean? But then when I'm in person, I have no problem. Like if you literally like, I make the joke all the time, like, why'd you get a PhD? Why do you want to get a PhD? He's like, well, I just lecture everyone all day anyway, so I might as well go and start lecturing for money, right? But because I feel that same pull, like I feel like I need to just, like I'm just silly. If you ask even my brother, Tony, both of us are just constantly texting my mom and being like, you can't say that on time because this is why you can't do that. This is why your stupid meme was wrong. This is why, you know what I mean? Like, and so yeah, I think that's very interesting that you kind of I don't know. Yeah, like you use social media as a way to like say how you feel because you can't always tell people in person. It's for me, it's very ineffective to wait 8 months to go home and say, hey, by the way, to my brothers, you guys are vastly uninformed about this thing, or whatever. When I could just tell them online, like,
Yeah,
hey, look at this, and I don't
exactly.
know.
That's how I see it. It's like, I mean, I can either try to talk to my sisters, which is really hard sometimes, or just like post it on there, and hopefully they are able to see it in a different light and grow from it. And I do see, like, and if my sisters or like their boyfriends share something weird, or I'll say something like, I don't care, and then I'm not saying it as like an attack. That's another thing, like with growing and learning, like so many people take offense to so many things when you correct them, and it's just like you just need to learn and grow and move on. And I know easier said than done because it's our ego, and our ego is protecting us, but it's like, um, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. You can say that you were wrong. You can admit that. It's really hard, I know, for some people, but that's just something we need to learn as like a, yeah, community, society. I'm tired of like so many people getting offensive over things. But yeah.
And no, absolutely, especially like you said, it's like no one likes to be criticized, especially if like it's a belief they hold dear, despite how wrong they are, right? And so when you do, they're like, it's like a personal affront, and it's especially tricky, like talking with family who it's like you feel like the bond is unbreakable, and then like you challenge their whole identity with something that they believe in. They're like, yeah, I don't know. It gets really tricky.
Yeah, it does. It's a hard, and I give props to those that are communicating with their families and trying to make that change because it's hard. It really is. Because there are families that are manipulative or just like super defensive or super authoritative and being like, because I said so, I don't care what you say, all that shit. Like, I've trust me, I've dealt with that, but you yeah, you can overcome it. It's hard, it's a struggle, it's lonely, but it's worth it in the end, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's actually all the I think all the kind of the questions I had, especially regarding your activism. I think we talked about work, home life, basically everything. So I guess before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to share with me about your experiences that we did not talk about, or do you just want to say on camera?
um, that's I think with activism also, I signed up to work for the crisis text line. That was like that was before um, the Black Lives Matter movement started, like the protests. This was like during COVID. I've been doing it for about since April, and
would you
I
would
did
you
it.
explain what it is real quick? Sorry.
I'm a crisis counselor at Crisis Text Line, which is a organization that you can text to, and anybody can text to, and there's no specific definition of what a crisis could be. It could be a mental health crisis, it could be domestic violence. There are different filters on what would need immediate assistance, and I don't call like authorities or like people like that. I'm just talking to people. the goal is to bring them from a hot minute, I think it's to a cool calm, like just calm them down. And that's the reason why these people like text in to just know that they need to. I mean, everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to share their story and what they're going through, and that's like, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people text in. So I'm a crisis counselor, and I talk to people about whatever they're going through, and I wanted to do this because once COVID started, I felt, like I said in the beginning, for those kids and for people that just don't have anyone to talk to. And I've been there. I've been in those shoes. I've been in that situation where it's like everyone thinks what you're saying is dumb or thinks you're dramatic, or depending on the culture that you come from, it's just like, just get over it already type of thing. And that's not okay. And I know that slowly a lot of cultures, not just Hispanic cultures, but like Asian cultures or Black communities, like it's slowly becoming something that's becoming, oh my gosh, it's slowly being brought aware to all these cultures. Like, it's not okay. Like, stop hiding your feelings, talk it out, cry it out, write it out. Like, it's all right. No one's going to judge you, but because society has always put this stigma on it, thinking that because you're talking to a therapist, there must be something wrong with you. Yeah. So I decided to do this because I wanted to talk to people and like help people, especially since COVID was happening and there was no other way for me to like kind of volunteer and put my time into helping others. Because I would see when everyone lost their jobs, I was seeing like food drives for kids, picking up lunches. I'm not sure if they're still doing those anymore. And also like collecting money for those that have lost their jobs and like helping restaurants and stuff like that. And this was before the protests happened, when I was like, I don't care about getting sick anymore. So I went out for the protest, but during this time when COVID started, I was scared and I didn't want to go out, and I was just sitting there and I was just like, what can I do? And then I came across the crisis text line, and I did the training and I just did it. So it was nice. I mean, it's a great experience. I'm learning a lot about empathy and listening to others and using those skills that I have made through the crisis text line, like in my everyday life, asking questions, talking to my family. So
Yeah, that sounds really one, important work, but it sounds kind of, cool, and it's rewarding for both you and for whoever it is. And I think you made again like a really good point, like you've been doing this whole conversation about like our culture necessitates having to have like a text line you have to call in because presumably people don't feel comfortable enough to just express themselves and talk about things like in their to their family, to their um their friends, or they even just to cry, right, to feel those things. And I think especially kind of in what we talked about a lot here is we have a lot of cultures, not just Latino culture, that make people suppress themselves and their feelings, right? Especially like men, we live in patriarchy, so toxic masculinity is the what you strive to be. Like if you're a therapist, you're weak, and if you have a mental health issue, you're weak, right? So it's yeah, I think that's great that you're doing that. I'm curious though, what has the have you been continuing working on that since the pandemic started?
yes, I've been working on that, and then I'll take time off because also my mental health is very important. And
Absolutely.
they promote that. They want to make sure that my cup is full before helping others. So it's been a great organization to work with, and the supervisors that I work with every day and the people that I work with every week, it's like really nice to hear from them. And we get feedback on like what we should improve on, and not as in like an attack, it's more just like this could be better for the next time, which is great. So yeah. Yeah, like during probably like in the beginning of June, I was kind of just like, I don't want to do anything. I don't know what's going on in this world. Like, it was just crazy. And so it was a lot mentally. So there are times where I've taken breaks and then I'll get back to it.
Has it how has the like COVID impacted the amount of people you get like texting into the line? Is it more now, or is it, you know, kind of the same?
Yeah, it's been more, but also we've been getting a lot of volunteers. So it's not like what's the word I'm looking for? We don't have a backlog, or we haven't had a backlog. And we also get weekly emails on like the amount of texters we're getting in, how long it's taking for texters to get someone, and it's not that long, and we're reaching our goals, and no one's waiting too long. So it's been great to see that, and there's a lot of people. I think I saw there was an email, it's like around 40,000 people that volunteer, I believe, like around the US. I could be wrong.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, it's a lot of people that volunteer.
So the pandemic has both, you know, increased the amount of people who want to help, and also, you know, maybe the people who need help. I guess
Yeah.
that's, you know, a plus of this
Yeah.
pandemic, if there is one, right?
I mean, I think the pandemic has, I mean, it's not distracting anybody anymore. Everyone has been so distracted. I mean, myself included, on life and trying to make, you know, I don't know, with social media. I think now more than ever, I'm like, fuck social media. I just want to live my life and not care about what anyone thinks and just do me. And I hope that everyone kind of comes to that conclusion as well, because it's so sad to see people that don't love themselves and people that think that like they're not worthy. And I think working for the crisis text line makes me, um, I don't know, share that with others. Like, I'm always telling people like, you're worthy. There are things that have happened with them that they don't deserve. Like, no, especially like in my family as well, like with my sisters, what we've gone through, my mom, my mom has gone through. I'm always like, we don't deserve that. No one deserves that. So I hope that this opens a lot of minds for people and know that we're all literally all in this together, pretty much. Like, all the all the people overpower all the rich people, all like the government. We can take them down. We could. It probably shouldn't be sent out, but
Yeah, we're really taking a turn towards revolutionary in this go around.
it's a lot. It's a lot to see the news, and every day Donald Trump is saying something stupid as fuck. But also every day AOC is just like killing it, and I love her, and she's also an inspiration. So I, yeah, I have a really good feeling that something good is going to happen, like good change. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath, but fingers are crossed,
I know.
because I feel the exact same way.
Yeah,
Um, especially about AOC. You know, she's like
she's a powerhouse.
I can't say enough good things.
No,
Especially, you know, as like as a Latina woman, and one that's outspoken, and, you know, one that uh, you know, despite all the negative things people try to say about her, bring her down about, you know, she's just too good for it. You know what I mean? Like,
like when Representative Yoho called her a bitch and like all that stuff, and when she brought up the fact that she's like, I've worked at bars, I've worked in restaurants, I've dealt with people that have called me worse or similar, and I'm just like, yep, like it doesn't faze me, and it doesn't faze her. So it was just like, yeah, it's really nice to see someone. That's another thing, like why I'm so interested in politics and the news and like these discussions that they have, because there's someone that I can relate to on there. There's someone that has like similar background to me that is on there, and it's like, before it was all just old white men. Like, why do I want to fucking watch these old white men on TV? Like, no. So it's really nice to see, and then just also seeing more women of color joining this and being a part of it and making change. yeah, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly there. Um, well, okay, that's actually all I had. So again, if there's nothing else, we can go ahead and wrap up. And
I'm
you,
good.
all right, let me just stop this recording real quick.